Hello, my name is Gary Towers and welcome to this video, which is a recording of the Year 11 GCSE Information Evening that was held here at Balcarres on the 15th of September 2021. The purpose of this video is to update Year 11 parents if they were unable to attend this meeting, and hopefully I'll be able to cover everything that was discussed on that evening so that if you are the parent of a Year 11 student here at Balcarres, you feel fully informed. So during the evening, we discussed the following things. Mr. Burke gave a brief introduction. He's not available for this video, but I'll explain what it was that he spoke about. We talked about GCSEs, and we talked about the data that we have about pupils in Year 11 and how we use that in terms of setting them targets. We talked about COVID and the impact of COVID and what the school was doing to support pupils in Year 11 in trying to succeed after obviously the disruption to their education that COVID had caused. We talked a little bit about revision, some ideas about how parents can help with this process, and then we finished and we had some time for any questions. So in his introduction, Mr. Burke spoke about the track record that Balcarres has in working with GCSE students. And the kind of key theme was that we have always been very successful with our GCSE students. We've had a couple of disrupted years where we as a school have awarded grades rather than them being awarded through the traditional method of them sitting exams. If we look back a couple of years to the last time there were kind of official exams, which were 2019, we had an excellent set of GCSE results with 84% of our students gaining 5 grades 9 to 4 with English and maths. Now, if you're not sure what we mean by grade 9, grade 4, then I'll talk about that in a moment, but that's a very high number of our students achieving at a high level there. And we had a Progress 8 score of 0.82. Now, a Progress 8 score is a way of a school measuring the progress that its pupils have made since they joined the school in Year 7, and it's a measure that when you get a positive number, that's a good thing. If you get a negative number, then that's not such a good thing. Back in 2019, the school had a Progress 8 score of 0.82, which was the highest of any comprehensive school here in Gloucestershire. So, first of all, that's just a brief introduction to GCSEs. For some parents, this might be their second, third time through with children that are taking GCSEs. For other parents, it might be their first time through. The last time they experienced GCSEs might have been when they took them themselves. So, a few years ago, there was a real drive from the Department for Education to change the GCSEs and replace them with more demanding versions. There was a feeling from the Department for Education that there had been too much of an emphasis on the ability to constantly retake, and that it had been broken down into too many sections, that there was too much coursework, and it really wasn't any longer a rigorous qualification. So they altered GCSE courses, they changed the emphasis so it was more directed to content and more demanding content, and then they shifted the emphasis more to exams that take place in the summer of Year 11, with less of an emphasis on coursework and controlled assessments. Now, in some courses where you would expect things like product design, things like art, then there is still coursework and controlled assessments, but in subjects such as science, there is no kind of controlled assessment anymore. Everything is assessed through the exams in Year 11. Now, that process of moving to the new style of GCSE had finished before the pandemic hit, and so we have experience of working with pupils on these courses. And as far as your child is concerned, this is just the demand of their GCSEs. This is just what their GCSEs are like. But to give you a little bit of the background there, that's what happened. Now, when they did that, the government wanted to reflect that there had been a change, and so the grading was changed. So instead of there being an A star grade, an A, a B, and so on, there was a change to number grades. And so all of the GCSEs that your child is taking are graded from a grade 9 down to grade 1. Grade 9 is the highest grade. There are a few exceptions. So Creative iMedia and Health and Social Care are Cambridge National qualifications. So they're more of a vocational qualification, and they get graded on a distinction, merit and pass scheme. So the grades that pupils achieve there are slightly different. Drama is graded 9 to 1, so the same grading style, but the reason that's in the other category there is because it's an IGCSE rather than a standard GCSE. Now, we take the IGCSE in drama, or we have our pupils take the IGCSE in drama, because there's a greater emphasis on practical work, and we believe that drama is a practical course, and we want to support our pupils in working in drama in that kind of way. So as I said, grade 9 is the highest grade, grade 1 is the lowest grade. For the first year of the new GCSEs, then the grade 4 was matched to the old C grade. So the same proportion of students that achieved a grade 4 achieved a C grade, and grade 7 was matched to an A grade. So the same proportion of students who got an A grade in the previous year would have got a 7 in the first year of that course. Now, that matching meant there hasn't been a huge shift in the number of people or pupils gaining grades. So we didn't see suddenly a big change in the profile of grades that were awarded here at Balcarres. The last thing to kind of say about that is that the old kind of benchmark in order to look at how well schools were doing was to look at the number of pupils that had got C grades in courses. That shifted slightly now that from a DFE perspective, from a government perspective, they're interested in the proportion of students that gain a grade 5, which is a high C, the equivalent of an old high C. So they've raised the benchmark a little bit for schools. That's not something for pupils to be particularly concerned about, but that's one of the ways that the Department for Education tried to make sure that standards were being improved. Now, your child then will be sitting GCSEs that are graded 9 to 1 or distinction, merit and pass. And what we will have done, and you'll have seen this on their reports, is that we will have set them a target for each of their subjects. Now, we use a method that tries to take into account the starting point of your child and our knowledge of your child to set those targets. So we take their Key Stage 2 results in reading and maths from primary school, and we use a piece of software that comes from an educational charity called Fisher Family Trust. That's what the FFT stands for, that takes that Key Stage 2 information along with other things as well, birth month, any special educational needs, lots of information there, and it uses that information to give us a target. How it does that is it takes the last 3 GCSE years, it finds pupils that are closely matched to the one we're trying to set a target for, and it says, right, on average, pupils over the last 3 years who are closely matched to the one we're trying to set a target to gained these grades in GCSEs. Now, the first kind of information it gives us then is, on average, what did those pupils achieve? Now, Balcarres is not an average school in terms of how its pupils do and the progress that they make. So we use a version of that software which is called FFT5. And I'll explain what that means in a bit more detail in a second. But what it does is it means that we end up setting targets that are challenging, that aren't what the average pupil would achieve, but what pupils in the top 5% of schools nationally achieve on average in terms of their grades there. So that's really saying we are setting ambitious targets for your child. Now, we don't just stop with that piece of software, though. We have our teachers then look at those grades, think about those grades, and make any changes that might be needed. So we use a combination of prior attainment of this piece of software and a matching to pupils over the past 3 years, and of teacher judgment to set those targets. Now, what we're looking then always at is the progress that a student can make. And we're looking at students trying to make the very best progress they can from their starting point in GCS, in Key Stage 2 at the end of primary school. So we set targets that would put our students, and so your children, in the top 5% nationally for their progress. So whereas in an average school, a pupil might make a progress that gets them, I don't know, up to getting all grade 6s, we'll be saying, well, actually, we want to set targets that go a little bit further than that. We're looking for grade 7s, for example. This is just what that piece of software looks like. You can see that it takes lots of pieces of information, and it gives us a grade as a starting point. Those grades get provided to our teaching staff, and then they use their knowledge of the pupil to adjust those and make sure we've got the right final target. So, for example, you might have a student that's FFT, that piece of software gives us a grade 6+ in maths as a target. Claire's maths teacher thinks, actually, kind of based on the way she's working her assessments in lessons, she can do better than that, and so the target grade gets set a little bit higher. So on your child's report, you will see GCSE targets. That's where they've come from, and then we will then report your child's progress against those targets, and you can see how they're doing in comparison to those targets. Now, in year 10, as pupils started their GCSE courses, we really focus on their effort. They are at the start of GCSE courses, they're developing their knowledge, their understanding, their ability to respond to GCSE style questions, and so it's really effort that we focus on. And we wouldn't be surprised if a student's progress was not near their targets yet. As we move into year 11, we now start to concentrate more on their progress grades and how much progress they're making and how close they're getting to those targets. Now, remember, those targets are challenging, so we wouldn't expect them to hit them in every subject all the time, but we're now looking for them to be making progress towards those targets and, you know, in some cases kind of hitting them. So that's the shift in focus that we as a school have. We monitor that progress carefully, and it's part of the role that I have here in the school to highlight any pupils where we think that progress isn't what it should be, and inform parents and students if it's a concern, and we'll obviously try and address that. Now, often, because we set challenging targets, then pupils and parents can feel that the targets might be too high. I do want to remind you they're based on what we know about your child, and so we really want them to work hard and try and be aspirational. They've got nothing to lose in terms of their targets. Their targets are there to kind of give them something to be kind of aiming for, but that isn't ever going to be kind of part of any permanent record that they've got. They're going to get a set of GCSE grades, And you know, as long as they've worked as hard as they possibly can, that's the key thing that we are interested in. And we'd ask them to believe in themselves, and you know, often a pupil might think, oh, there's no way I can get there, but as they work through year 11 and things start to click, we see their progress grades increase and them getting closer and closer to those targets. If they're too low, then there's a way you can check on that. So have a look at the progress grades for your child. If their progress grades are higher than their target grades, and that happens a couple of times, then that's a really good indication that we've got it wrong. Those targets are too low. You can ask the teacher to raise the target. So contact the individual member of staff that's teaching that subject and ask them about raising that target. We love to be proved wrong on that. Targets, we don't put them there to be a ceiling. We don't put them there and say this is as high as you can get. The point is to try and give pupils and parents an idea of where we should be aiming. We're really happy when students exceed their targets, and we're really happy to put them up if that's the right thing to do. Now, obviously, this year, COVID has, without a doubt, disrupted the first year of your child's GCSEs. And we don't know what's going to happen over the course of the next year. You know, there could be changes that happen nationally. Our strong instinct at the moment is that exams will go ahead next summer. I'm really hopeful that they do. It's absolutely the best way for students to be awarded their grades. Teacher assessments, they've worked well for us, and we've done that in a very fair and a very structured way. And for, you know, parents and pupils have appreciated that when we think about last year's year 11. But it's much better if we as a school are helping pupils to do their best, and then the exam board are working on assigning the grades. So that our instinct is that is what will happen, but you know, we will have to see what happens as we go into the winter and so on. Now, the DFE recognise that there has been disruption to the current Year 11's GCSE years, and they've launched a consultation where they've suggested some changes that will be made to the exam season. Those changes are kind of specific to subjects. For many subjects, the change is that pupils will be given prior knowledge of the topics that will come up on the exam papers. So they've got an idea of what areas to focus their revision on. For others, there are more extensive changes, and within your children's lessons, teachers will inform them if there are any big significant changes. But all of those changes at the moment are just part of a consultation. We've contributed to that and given our opinions on that, and we await the outcome of that. The outcome of that will be early October. Now, my instinct again is that those changes that have been suggested are what will happen, and so we're in a good position. We know exactly what those changes are, and we'll adjust our teaching and the way we work and what we ask pupils to do in response to that. Now, because of COVID, we've done something slightly different this year. So each of our subjects in Year 11, the member of staff that runs that subject has written an action plan, and that action plan has identified issues caused by COVID, gaps in curriculum knowledge that might be an issue and how that's going to be addressed. The Year 10 exam has been used to highlight any areas where you know, pupils were given a question and they weren't able to access that question because of the remote learning nature of what happened last year. And departments have identified students that might be at risk of underperforming, and they are going to work with those students and help support them through. So we've got a clear idea of what we're doing to address the impact of COVID, and we're working with pupils to make sure that we do that effectively. Having said that, we're actually super confident in this year group. As a year group, overall, it's a really hard-working, motivated group of students. As a year group, if we had to have one that had we were working with in the way we are, then you would pick this year group. It's a great group of students, and we're really confident that they're going to go on to do well. Remember, they're facing pupils in examinations across the country that have faced exactly the same kind of challenges, and so there's no reason why they won't be able to do as well in comparison to them as we do each and every year. The work that they produced in year 10 already shows that they're on track to do well. Okay, so we're not concerned about this year group. We're not, particularly, worried that it's going to all go wrong. We've got a clear plan of action. We've got a motivated group of students, and we're confident that they're going to be able to do really, really well. So one of the kind of key things coming up will be our mock examinations. So they happen after the October half term. I'm always asked, why is it so early in comparison to other schools? Well, we've found that this placement of the mock exams works really well, because actually it's just over halfway through the GCSE course if you're taking it as a kind of as a 2-year course. And what that means is that we get, a good understanding of where pupils are, with plenty of time to work with students that might not have made the progress that we want. If we place the mock exams later into the year, if we were in April, for example, with the mock exams, well, the GCSEs start in May, and so we wouldn't have a lot of time to work with pupils. So those mock exams are going to come up in the next half term, and revision is obviously something that's going to be key to that. What we do is our tutors over the next half term deliver a series of revision sessions in tutor time, and that's revision sessions in terms of letting pupils know how to revise, helping them develop techniques that allow them to revise effectively. Now, on our VLE, in the section called the Student Zone, there is a page, a little series of helpful activities, which is called Revision Help. So that's there for students all the time, for them to be able to go and get advice and help on how they might go about revising. For parents, on the parent portal section of the VLE, there is that information as well. So there's a revision help section there. So if as a parent you think, I'm not sure my child's revising, and you say, oh, should you be doing some revision? And they say to you, oh, I don't know how to go about revising, and you want some resources to help you in that discussion, then you can go and take a look at that. There are a couple of really good revision resources out there. Now, there's so many things that I don't have time to talk about them all, but there is a website called Seneca Learning, and that is free to sign up for pupils. You have to give an email address. Pupils can use their school email address to do that. We've never had any problem with that leading to kind of excessive sales or phishing or anything like that. So you sign up, you can select the GCSEs that you're taking, and it's a really nice, effective way of doing some revision. It doesn't do everything, but it is a nice way of students breaking up maybe some more traditional type revision with using this online resource. There's another place I want to highlight, and again, it doesn't do this for everything. It does it for a select subjects, but there's a website called Physics and Maths Tutor, which initially you think, oh, right, okay, well, that's only going to apply to physics and maths. Actually, it applies to other subjects as well. So we've got maths, English, science, geography, history on there in terms of GCSE. And what's really nice about that is that there are revision activities, but it's a place that you can find past exam papers. And it's just a store, a really quick store of being able to find those exam papers. All exam boards release their past exam papers online, and pupils are going to get a little booklet telling them which exam board they're doing courses in. So you can just do a search to find those papers. But for these particular subjects, they're all in one place, and that makes life nice and easy. Now, one of the key things about revision is that small, frequent revision is much better than just spending hours and hours once revising something. And that's basically what this graph here shows. So if students revise small chunks kind of repeatedly, then they're much more likely to remember that than they are if they just kind of do big, 3-hour sessions and then that's it. They never look at that material again. So again, a benefit of us having the mock exams early and us thinking about starting revision is that we do some revision now, getting ready for the mock exams, and then that revision happens again later in the year, and so on and so on. There are some kind of pieces of research that have been done into how effective different types of revision are, and this slide just gives you an idea of which things are the most effective. And so the two at the bottom there are practice testing, so questioning, using past papers in terms of really having a go to see whether you can do that question, having a look at the mark scheme, seeing what's happening there is really effective. And then distributed practice, so spreading it out over time rather than trying to do it all at once, and cramming at the end really is the most effective. And the last thing I'll say about that is that one of the most effective techniques is this Pomodoro technique, and it's the idea that you kind of have a period of revision, so for 20 minutes. So you do some revision for 20 minutes, set a timer in order to do that, and after 20 minutes, you have a 5-minute break. And then you do something else for 20 minutes, and then you have a 5-minute break, and then you do something else for 20 minutes. And you link together 4 rounds of activity and then have a longer break after that. And this breaking things down, doing 20 minutes, having a break, 20 minutes, having a break, seems to really help in terms of retaining the information and making the revision efficient. So every year on GCSE Results Day, I get excited because I want to see pupils really happy about their results, really excited about the results that they're going to get. Teachers get excited because they're going to get to speak to their pupils about how well they've done, and pupils congratulate each other on the great results that they've got. So we want to try and support pupils in getting the best grades possible. And it's the best grades for them as an individual. And if they've worked hard and they've done everything that they can, that's all we ask. And we want them to feel, when they get those results, yes, these are the best grades I could have got, and I'm really happy with them. So we're going to try and support them in that. We're going to give each Year 11 pupil a mentor. I'm just in the process of finalising who that's going to be, and that's going to be a member of staff in the school. And they're going to meet with their mentor 3 times this year, and that mentor is going to support them. It's a friendly ear to talk to about what's going on, about how their courses are going, about what their future kind of choices might be. So the mentor will talk about how grades are going, look at if they're on or below target, etc. And they will suggest things that your child can do if they aren't quite making the progress that they should be. The meetings are going to be in lunch times, break times, tutor times, so it's not going to take up any lesson time. They'll also discuss what to do, what options there are post 16, so post GCSE. They'll talk about revision techniques again, and any other strategies that will help your child make good progress and stay happy at the school. If we don't manage to have those sessions, then pupils should have a word with their tutor or come and see me, and we'll make sure that those sessions actually happen. But it's a two-way process, and pupils must make sure they try and turn up at the time that they've got an appointment booked with their mentor. Now, stress is a big discussion. Obviously, we've got pupils taking GCSEs, and they're going to find that stressful. Now, stress is it's a healthy human response to challenging situations, and there's no doubt that examinations are a challenging situation, and so pupils will experience stress. And learning to cope with that is an important life skill. I'm sure in our workplaces we all have periods of time when we experience stress, and we need to be able to cope with that. What we don't want to happen is we don't want pupils to become anxious. We don't want them to have anxiety. We don't want it to negatively affect their health or their progress. Okay, so we have information on that revision section about how to cope with stress, about how to feel more confident about the exams, and how to stop that stress actually leading to anxiety. So that's on the exam section. There's some information, and then there's also more under our student support section, so our pastoral section, about how to cope with exam stress. So there's some kind of self-help materials there to allow pupils to be able to deal with their stress effectively. Now, you know your child best, so you might think, okay, that's great, they've had a look at those materials, but I'm really concerned that they're getting overwhelmed, and what's been suggested just isn't working. If that is the case, then please contact their head of house, let us know, and we can look if there are alternatives that can help. If you can help support us, I know it's not always easy talking to teenagers about their schoolwork, but if you can help support us in helping them make sure that they've completed their homework, that they're getting on with any continuing coursework, and they're not leaving things to the last minute, that would be really helpful. Looking in their planners, looking at their VLE will really help with that. Coursework deadlines are in that little information booklet that we're giving to pupils tomorrow. So take a look at that, and if you can work with your child on making sure they meet those, that would be really helpful. So just here, there are some kind of key dates. I'm not going to kind of go through them all here, but you can see that this year we've got lots of events, lots of reports to try and answer. Lots of events, lots of reports to try and support your child and you in knowing where they're at and how things are going. As I say, if you have any concerns, then please either contact the teacher or the department, particularly if it's a concern in one subject, or heads of house, as always, via email, and they'll be happy to help. I suppose finally, what I wanted to say is that we've had a period of really disrupted kind of time at school, and so attendance is going to be key. The more time that they can be in school, the more opportunity we have to help them, support them in doing their best. They're teenagers, and so sleep is really important to them, and trying to make sure they get a good night's sleep each day before they come into school is going to be really helpful. Thinking about diet is really important, and in times of stress it's really common to kind of go for quick release energy type foods, so high fat, high sugar foods. That helps in the short term, but it can lead to kind of slumps and dips. So talking to your child about maintaining a balanced diet through this year is really important. And they are still young people, and they've had a period of time where their lives have been significantly disrupted. So we don't expect it to be all work this year. Yes, this year is important, and we want them to work hard for their exams, but we also want them to be able to carry out the activities that they love doing. So if they're into rugby, then please keep them playing rugby. If they're into arts, then keep them doing that. So getting that balance between work and play is really important, and we don't expect them to be working all the time. I hope that has covered any kind of key questions you might have had, and those are the things that we discussed at the information evening. I'm always available via email if you have any questions. Thank you very much for your attention.